I had a baby as a result of an affair, and now his wife is reaching out to me. IF, 26, had an affair with a married man M, 42, a few years ago. I had no clue he was married when we first met and hooked up. I obviously looked him up on social media, and while he did have photos of his kids on there was absolutely no mention or photos of a wife at all. I found out that he was married about a month after we first got together, but he told me it was just a marriage on paper and that they basically lived separate lives and agreed to remain married for practical purposes until the kids were older. They owned a business, which she really ran, and he was just financially involved in. I knew at the time that I probably shouldn't believe him, but I convinced myself it was true. I was in my early 20s and so attracted to him, and I guess almost infatuated with him. He made me feel so good. I know now that I should have ended it immediately, but I didn't realize what I was getting myself into. I was addicted to all of the attention he gave me, the great sex, the places he'd take me. I felt special. I was so naive. I got pregnant about a year into seeing him. I had always been so careful with preventing pregnancy, but during my relationship with him, I took stupid risks. I was so high in lust with this guy, it's embarrassing. The things he'd asked me to do, I'd say yes to almost anything, even when I knew it was a bad idea. I was in love with him, or I thought I was. I hadn't intentionally wanted to get pregnant. I would of course dream about being his wife and having a family, but I knew that wouldn't be a possibility while he had this arrangement with his actual wife. I didn't get pregnant on purpose with any intention of him leaving her for me, even if I wished that we could be a real, normal couple. I was surprised by how excited I was to be pregnant with his baby. I wanted that baby once I found out I was pregnant. The thought of carrying this baby of the man I loved was so special to me, but I knew he probably wouldn't feel the same. I told him I was pregnant, and he told me I couldn't keep the baby. I expected his reaction, but I was devastated, and it hurt me to my core that he didn't feel the same way I did. He offered to pay to make a whole weekend of it somewhere exciting what the F, and to buy me something special if I just please get rid of the baby. He explained that he didn't want any more kids and that he couldn't openly be a father to another kid when he and his wife were still pretending to be happily married to the outside world. I agreed to do what he wanted, and we made plans for him to pick me up and find somewhere out of town to go get it done. I was all packed the night he was going to pick me up, but I started to feel really scared and really unsafe about the whole thing. I took my bag and checked myself into a hotel to hide because I couldn't go with him. I texted him to say I promised to never contact him again and to never name him as the father or go after child support if he'd promised to leave me alone. At first, he tried to sweet-talk me into doing what he wanted. When I didn't cave in, he said some very nasty things to me and that I essentially better never contact him again or show up at his door. I have a 2-year-old now. At times, it's been difficult, but overall we are thriving as best we can. I have kept my word about not naming his as the father or requesting child support. His wife contacted me on social media. Well, she's his ex-wife now. She wants to talk to me. She found out about me and told me that she divorced him 6 months ago. She wants her children to know their sibling and for my child to know his siblings. That's weird to me. I haven't responded back to her yet. I am unsure about how to approach this. How do I respond to this? I wonder if I'm being selfish by not exploring an option for my child to know his siblings, if she's being genuine about that. If I was married and my husband fathered a child outside of our marriage, I don't think I'd feel the same that she does. Update. I made a post 3 weeks ago, and things have only gotten stranger. I had an affair with a married man a few years ago. I regret it, and I will never do anything like that ever again. I knew it was wrong from the very beginning, but he captivated me. I was naive. I allowed myself to believe when he told me they were pretty much just married on paper for the sake of their kids. I got pregnant, and while he tried to talk me into getting an abortion, I ultimately decided to keep the baby. I have a 2-year-old little boy now. I promised this man that I wouldn't expose our affair and I wouldn't formally identify him as the father or request child support. I did that because he was becoming very nasty about the whole thing, and I felt like due to the mess that I had created and the way I felt by the end of it, a clean break with no involvement with him would be the best thing for everyone. I moved back to where my family is, hundreds of miles from where he and his family live. About a month ago, his ex-wife reached out to me via social media, claiming they had been divorced for 6 months and that she wanted our children to be able to know each other. Now, their kids are teenagers, so I didn't really think they'd want anything to do with the toddler and the woman their father was having an affair with. It seemed odd to me. After posting here, I sort of decided that I wouldn't respond to her. I'd just ignore it. She just sent me the one message, so it wasn't as if she was badgering me about talking to me or meeting me. On Friday night, I decided to message her. I don't really know why. I think it was really just for my sake so I could have the chance to apologize to her. I told her that I would be more comfortable speaking with her face to face since I couldn't trust that it was really her. She said she understood. I was too nervous to meet her in person, but we did a video chat. I didn't know what to expect, if this was all a ploy just to unleash her fury on me or what. I mean, I'd deserve that. She wouldn't be wrong to feel that way. It was really her. She told me she discovered our affair when she found communications between the two of us after our relationship had ended. She told me I'm one of many women he had affairs with over the years, and she knew about somebody even before he met me, but she didn't divorce him at the time. Finding out about my child was the final straw for her. I told her I was sorry for my relationship with her husband and admitted that I knew he was married. She graciously told me she forgives me and that while she harbored a lot of anger towards me initially, she ultimately blames her husband. I'm not blameless, but she chooses to not hate me, essentially. She said she couldn't have said this 6 months ago or a year ago when she first found out about me, but she has moved past that. She still has anger toward him, in addition to many other emotions surrounding him. She started pouring out her heart to me about their 20-plus year marriage and life together, and it was very awkward because what do I even say? Her kids know about me and my son. She says they're very mad at their father. Somehow, I don't think they're mad about the fact that he's not involved with my son's life. And why would they be mad about that? I would hate me if I were them. I told her with my son being so little right now, I don't really feel comfortable with him meeting her kids or being involved with their family. I feel unsure about it, and it's just not something I feel needs to happen right now. Then she told me her ex-husband was in a bad accident 2 months ago. He's fine now, still not allowed to return to all his normal activities just yet, but will be fine. He is probably the most physically active person I've ever met. Barely ever seems to sit down, so he must be terribly annoying to be around if he's not allowed to go all the time. She told me he wants to meet my son. Apparently, she moved back in with him temporarily when he first came home from the hospital. She said the accident really shook him up, and he has been expressing a lot of regret about my son, not being involved, not providing for him. So now it's like, was everything she said just a lie, and he somehow got her to reach out to me on his behalf? And she actually did it. It felt almost like a relief talking to her initially. But then it's like, was any of that true, or you were just trying to be his messenger? I don't even know if that part is true now. Why wouldn't he just contact me himself? I'm just feeling so uneasy about the whole thing now. Update 2. I posted about this few months ago. To summarize very quickly, when I was fresh out of college, I had an affair with a married man and father. I became pregnant. He wanted me to get an abortion. He had arranged to take me away in a vacation to get an abortion. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, but I agreed to go along with what we wanted. At the last minute, when he was on his way to come pick me up, I told him I couldn't go through with the abortion. I just really didn't feel comfortable about his plan and how he was orchestrating everything. It scared me. I realized at that time how deep I had gone with this mistake, how screwed up the whole relationship was. He was really mad. He threatened me, said a lot of nasty things to me. I told him if he just left me alone and let me have my baby, then I'd leave him alone and wouldn't name him as the father or seek child support. I moved back home. I was living in a different state when I met him. I kept my word and I did name him as the father or seek to establish paternity. I have never sought child support. My child is 2 now. A few months ago, his wife contacted me via social media. At first, she made it seem like she wanted my child to have the opportunity to know his siblings. It was sort of weird since the siblings are teenagers. She said she had divorced him 6 months prior. I agreed to talk to her virtually, not in person. I felt that I owed it to her to apologize for what I had done. I do feel bad about it. But at the end of the conversation, I told her that I didn't feel it was the appropriate time to connect my son with her kids. He's a toddler and they're teens. Plus, I had promised her husband to stay out of his life. That's when she told me that he was recently in a bad accident and she had been helping to take care of him. Supposedly, he was going to be fine and was fairly recovered at that point, but she said he had expressed interest to meet our child, so she was basically his messenger. I have not been in contact with her since then. I deleted my social media. I don't know why, but the whole thing just really made me uncomfortable. Since I last posted here. Then, I received a handwritten letter from him. In it, he expressed how he wanted to get to know our son. He wants to be a father to our son. He wants to provide financially for him. He'd like us to come visit him. He asked me to sign a paternity affidavit. I refused to do so. I know he is my son's father, but I'm not going to make this that easy for him. After the things he said to me and threatened me with, he at least has to work for this. At that point, my parents felt that we needed to meet with a lawyer. All communication from me has gone through a lawyer. I have never responded to him personally directly. Now, I have a court order for paternity. I have to present my son to have a specimen taken tomorrow. I already know what it's going to say. It's not that I don't want my son to have a dad in his life. It's just, the whole situation is a mess, and he lives a few states away from me. I don't know what to do. I can't really do anything. He's doing things legally. Next, I'm sure he'll petition for some form of custody or visitation. He's not married anymore, supposedly, but he's a lot more established than I am. He has considerably more financial resources. I also know he has all sorts of connections where he lives. Luckily, they don't hold as much weight here in my state, but it's still so scary to me. I'm a bad mom. I brought my son into this world knowing it was a messy situation. I just got so comfortable with it just being the two of us, and now I don't want to give that up. Update 3. I won't rehash the whole thing here. My previous posts are on my profile. I got pregnant from an affair with a married guy. He wanted me to have an abortion. I decided I didn't want one. He turned mean. I promised to not name him as the father, legally, or to pursue any sort of child support. I moved away from where he and his family were located. I'm about 12 hours away from him now, back where my family is from. I haven't reached out to him in the now over 3 years since. His ex-wife reached out to me out of the blue via social media, initially claiming she wanted to connect with me so that our kids could know each other. When I politely declined for the time being, as her kids are teenagers and my son is a toddler and we live states apart, she revealed she was really reaching out in behalf of her ex-husband, who had supposedly had a change of heart about being involved in our child's life after nearly dying in an accident. I did not engage with her any further after that. It all made me feel very uncomfortable. Later, I received a letter from him in the mail. He asked to be involved with our son, to provide for him, etc. It still felt weird. I mean, he turned really mean and didn't want anything to do with me or our baby and hadn't made any attempt to contact me in years, and I was not hiding. His wife was obviously able to find me on social media, and you can find my address online. I felt like if he was serious, he'd take the steps to establish paternity legally, and that's what he did. Around 1.5 months ago, we were ordered to submit DNA samples for a paternity test. It took around 5 weeks to find out what I already knew it'd say. But now things are stalled for another several weeks for the next step in the court process. I haven't talked to him at all during this whole thing. I didn't respond directly to his letter. I do have a lawyer and everything is basically going through him now. Then, without any warning, he just showed up at my home last weekend. Just knocked on the door like it was nothing. Basically, this is his son, and he doesn't want to wait another 6 weeks for the court to inevitably order us into some sort of custody mediation anyway, his words. Why can't I just talk to him? I told him he made me uncomfortable, and him just showing up at my house really made me uncomfortable. Honestly, I don't know what made me so uncomfortable. The fact that he showed up unannounced like that, or the fact that I instantly felt the same attraction to him that I had when I was with him, and I didn't want to feel that at all. In some weird way, part of me felt happy to see him, and then another part of me was disgusted that I was happy. He said he doesn't understand why we can't just talk about this. He's not trying to take my son away from me. He just wants to be involved in his life and to help provide for him like he should have been all along. He's sorry he wasn't there when he was born. He's sorry he reacted the way that he did when I didn't go along with his plans to take me on an abortion vacation. Why can't I believe that he just wants to be a dad to his kid? I guess I agree with him. Why can't I just accept that he has had a change of heart? I can't trust myself. I can't trust my own judgment. I feel like if I easily let him into my son's life, I'm going to end up regretting it and be made a fool of somehow. I've already made so many mistakes when it comes to him. He says it's stupid of me to not try to work it out amongst ourselves first. I'm giving so much control to the court. I don't know whether to believe that or to think it's just his way of convincing me to do what he wants. I know he will get some sort of visitation and eventual custody. Maybe it would be better if we try to come to an agreement, but he had the ability to sway me so easily. I'm so stupid when it comes to him. Nobody else has ever made me feel so foolish in my life. I want my son to have a dad. I admit it's probably selfish of me to want to keep him away. I just keep imagining having to spend weeks or months apart from my child while he's living with his dad 12 hours away, and I can't stand the thought of it. I'm just feeling sad, stupid, and defeated. Update 4. Since everyone got mad at me for posting a recap of my situation in my previous posts, I won't even go there. If you're interested in the backstory, you can read my previous posts. All I will say is that I have a 3-year-old son who was conceived with an affair I had with a married man. After initially making me promise to not contact him, to not name him as the father, and to not request child support, my child's father has been pursuing involvement in our son's life over the last several months. He lives states away, and most recently he showed up at my house to try to convince me to work things out directly with him. Since the last time I posted, we've recently had a mediation session, and he's met our son twice. At this time, he will have supervised visitation, with me present. Because he lives states away, he is required to come here to see our son. It will not be on a weekly basis due to the travel. He will see him during 2 weeks of the month, 2 times each week, for a total of 4 visits a month plus 2 video calls a month. This will last for 6 months. The next step will be for him to continue that schedule, but to have unsupervised visitation during which he cannot remove him from the area, for another 6 months. After a year, we agree to have another mediation session to determine next steps, with his goal of being able to have my son at his home for short overnights. I'm not even ready to discuss that. He's already suggesting I can come for the first few times. I don't like the sound of it at all. We also have the option to request another mediation before 1 year, and something tells me he's going to pull that. I also have an order for child support. While he is in agreement with paying child support, it will have to work through the court system before becoming official, and for me to start getting the regular payment. He wrote me a large check in the meantime. I was hesitant to accept it. Not that I don't think my son deserves it, but now I'm just always worried I'll say or do the wrong thing legally, completely unknowingly, and shoot myself in the foot. Like, am I obligated myself and my son to anything by accepting this check? Can he somehow spin this against me? Of course, he was not in favor of the 6-month plan, and while he does understand that my son should not just go off with a stranger upon first meeting him, he wishes we could speed it along a little more. But 6 months was what we were able to agree on. He wanted to fly us both to where he lived so he could spend a week or two getting to know our son, but I don't feel that's appropriate at this time. Perhaps in a few months, or around the holidays, depending on how things are going. It would be too much too soon. The initial 2 meetings went pretty much just as I thought they would. My son is extremely shy. He wanted to hide behind me most of the time. Then when he would venture out from behind me, as soon as his dad would say anything to him, he would scurry back behind me and just stare at his dad blankly without saying anything. He came out of his shell a little bit, however, he has still not said a single word to his dad. He just pretends like his dad isn't there and only talks to me. I will say that his dad is being patient and understanding as far as that goes. If he's frustrated, he's not showing it. He did suggest that maybe our son needs to get out more, go to daycare more of even preschool instead of spending so much time with me and my parents. He's very delighted with how much our son looks like him and how much he favors him over me. The one thing that did bother me is that I already told him I wanted to be very careful and mindful of how we informed our son, this little barely 3-year-old boy, that this man-complete stranger is his dad. He said, "Sure, yeah." Then at the first meeting he introduced himself as dad. Since then I've been trying to help my son understand. Like, you know how your grandpa is my daddy, this guy is your daddy. It's so surreal to me that any of this is happening. I feel like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm waiting for something to blow up in my face. Now, it's just working on accepting our new reality. All of this change is hard and confusing for my son, and it's hard for me. Unless he really F up, I'm looking at eventually shared times with my son spending school breaks and holidays at his dad's house, hours and hours away in another state. It won't happen tomorrow, but it will happen in the most likely reality. I just hope he stays committed. If he can be a good dad to my child, then my child deserves that, no matter how sad sharing him makes me. If he breaks my son's heart, that'll be another story, and I won't accept that so readily. Next story. Am I the butthole for breaking up with my fiancé after he insisted on me forgiving my bio dad? Let me clarify that this is a throwaway account. My friends follow my personal account. Don't mind my English, I'm Argentinian, and also, I would like to make things short, but I'm afraid that it's pretty impossible since I'm going to have to give a lot of context. So, basically I 28F now and my twin brother Leo 28M were raised by my mother alone in our childhood. She was married to my dad, but divorced him when she found out he was cheating, and he just disappeared and didn't even pay child support when we were 4 years old. My mom raised us alone, that grew up with abusive parents. She was a teacher and did her best to take care of us, and she was and still is simply the best mom you could ask for. Never abusive or unfair, never showed any favoritism. She was always interested in us and was the perfect combination of a fun, but responsible parent. As a result, my brother and I decided to do our best not to generate any problem to her. We did our best in school, didn't generate troubles, and did all our chores. My mom started dating our stepdad, Carlos, who was her high school sweetheart when we were 11. And this guy was always the father we never had, and loved us like their own. They also had our little sister Virginia, and we have been a big happy family. Now, our dad tried to reach us several times, but after a few disappointments, Leo and I decided to cut him off and appreciate that we had a great man like Carlos in our lives who swore to us that he would never go away. Back to the present, I had been dating my now ex-fiancé Jonathan 30M for 3 years. We had been engaged for a couple of months and living together, and everything seemed perfect, except one thing. He sometimes would try to convince me to forgive my father and to invite him to our wedding. He knows everything that happened, but he's still insisting on the fact that he's family and I should forgive him. But I draw the line when he invited his parents and tried to make an intervention. I had to hold my anger as I heard all their crap, and I was about to snap, but I forced myself to calm down. I simply took off my ring, left it at the table, and said that we were done for good. They were all shocked, and I stood up, grabbed my phone, and called my ex-boyfriend from high school, Lucas 28M, and explained what happened to him, and asked for some help to go back to my hometown. Lucas and I dated for 4 years, from 14 to 18, and broke up due to distance. We were friends since we were 6 years old, so he was with me through all the disappointments that my bio dad gave me. We're still friends and see each other when we go back home, and often call each other. He was angry and told me he would be there right away. The town it's only an hour away from the city I was living in. I started to pack my stuff, while him and his parents kept trying to make me change my mind. But I just ignored and called my mom and brother to tell them the wedding was off and that I would be going back home for a while. They kept telling me I was exaggerating, that I was choosing wrong, but I just packed everything I own and Lucas showed up pretty quick. Of course, my ex-fiancé was mad that I had called my ex-boyfriend, but I didn't care, and Lucas and I just went back home. Luckily, I work from home, so I don't have any problem moving whenever I want. I can work from anywhere. I decided to let know all my close circle what had happened right away, and they are all on my side. I arrived to my hometown, and my stepdad, mom, and little sister received me with a lot of love, and told me I needed to do what felt right and not to force myself to get myself in a marriage if my fiancé can't even respect my boundaries and invalidates my feelings. Lucas said that I deserve someone better and to try to focus on moving on. However, Jonathan's friends and family is still berating me for breaking up with him in front of his parents and leaving with my ex just like that. But in my defense, he didn't give me a choice. Part of me is thinking they're only doing it because they're his family and friends, but part of me is starting to believe that maybe, I handled things wrong. I don't regret breaking up with him. It hurts, but it just feels better like this. But maybe I was too harsh. I don't know. Am I the butthole? Update. I doubt anyone will read this, but here's an update. I would like to thank everyone who commented. I wasn't able to see the comments until like a week later due to some problems I had with my phone, and it seemed pretty pointless to reply after so long. But thanks for the advices, I appreciate. So, it's been over 3 months since I posted. 4 since I broke up with my ex-fiancé. A lot has happened ever since. After the first month, I thought my ex had given up, but he tried hard to find me through all our contacts. Finally, one mutual friend told him where I was, and he showed up at my house. My stepdad threatened to call the police if he didn't leave, and he did, but told my stepdad he wouldn't stop trying until he could talk to me. I wasn't home at the time, and I chose to talk to him. I decided to call him and make things clear to him. I didn't think it was necessary, but I did think maybe he thought we still had a chance. So I called him and I told him that we were done and that wouldn't change, and I didn't care what reasons he had to do what he did. I was clear about the situation with my bio dad, and he completely ignored my feelings and thoughts when it wasn't his business, and that someone like him, who thinks he's always right, is not someone to be trusted. Then I just cut the phone call. Some people on the comments kept asking why would he do this, and I think that's because of 2 reasons. The first one is that his mindset is that family is family, and no matter what, you need to always be there for them. As you can guess, I don't agree with that at all. I think family is the people you choose, and no person is worthy of being in your life just because they are your own blood. And I think like this for a long while now, and it's what helped me get through everything. Also, he was the type of person who thinks the best thing is to forgive, to be okay with yourself, to be at peace. And well, that's crap for me. I don't think that's necessary at all, and I think you can move on from something without forgiving anyone who screwed you up. Some people also thought that I needed to go to therapy to deal with this. The truth is that I went to therapy for a while for this and multiple other problems, and I'm at peace with it. I don't think about it. But I do know that I don't want him on my life, and that's my choice and no one else's. Now, many asked why I asked my ex to come pick me up, and the truth is pretty simple. I trust Lucas with my life, but besides that, he's tall and a boxer, and well, I knew that there were chances of everything going to crap and that things could get violent, or at least I was scared of it, and that's why I called Lucas. I once had another situation with another guy I went out with for like a month. He got violent and I called Lucas to help me. Like I said in the post, we were friends before dating, and now it's kinda confusing. I'm not the kind to jump from one relationship to another, and that's why I avoided seeing Lucas personally, because I was starting to feel confused with my feelings towards him. I took my time to process the breakup, and 2 weeks ago I met with him to talk and told him what was happening to me. He said he was going through something similar and we agreed to give it another shot. We're still seeing, but it's pretty clear to me that my feelings are even stronger than I thought. Anyway, hopefully this will be my first and last update, but you never know. I heard that my ex is still trying to contact me, but I'm just ignoring it for now. If things get messy, I'll see what I'll do then. Next story. Am I the butthole for buying my sister's dream house? My 27F wife 30F and I recently closed on our dream house, and it has the family torn. Years ago my grandparents owned the family home, but when they died unexpectedly with a lot of medical debt and expenses, our family had to sell their house. It was heartbreaking and sad, and I decided as a small child that one day I would buy the house back. I shared those dreams with my sister. I met my wife when I was 18 and she was 21. Her parents owned a small rental that they allowed her to live in rent-free, just paying for the expenses. She invited me to live with her a year into our relationship, and we got married a year after that. I told her about my dreams of owning my grandparents' house, and she fully supported me. We began putting large amounts of money back for a down payment in the hopes that the house wouldn't go on the market before we could afford it. Because we didn't pay rent and both had good jobs for our ages and the economy we lived in, we were able to put back a very, very large sum of money. My in-laws also offered us a sum of $75,000 for the down payment, and in total we put back about $185,000. About 20 years after my grandparents passed away, their house finally went back on the market at a massive price. The house itself is huge with 6 bedrooms, a large lakefront estate, and several features including a pool and small guest house. We knew that this house would have a huge price tag, and we skimped and budgeted for 9 years to afford my dream house. My sister was also house shopping at this time, but with a much smaller budget. Her and her husband have children, student debt, and rented for the past several years and were not able to put back money in the same way my wife and I were. When our grandparents' house went on the market, I sent the link to my sister and said that we were finally getting our grandparents' home back in the family. She was very excited and said as much, and that was that. My wife and I moved forward, visiting with the owners and real estate agents, having it inspected, and made an offer. They accepted, and we were absolutely over the moon. Throughout this whole process, my sister kept saying how excited she was to have the house back in the family and how nice it will be for her children to know this house and grow up in it like her and I did. Our grandparents' house was the location of every birthday, holiday, gathering, and reunion, and my wife and I planned on making it that way again, which was why what my sister said didn't raise any red flags. Weird that she'd phrase it that way, but not concerning. We had a BBQ at my parents' house to celebrate the final closing of our house. During the dinner, my mill offered to kennel our dogs while we were in the stages of moving to keep things easier and them safe, and that was when my sister piped up. She asked why our dogs needed to be watched when the real issue was her kids. My wife asked what she meant, and she said that her kids will need more supervision than our dogs, and that she was confused as to why we'd be so busy that our dogs needed watching. I told her I was the one confused. I didn't know she was helping us move, and that if her kids couldn't reliably be left to their own devices, then she absolutely did not need to help us pack. My sister proceeded to ask why my wife and I would be packing. I told her the obvious: we just closed in a house. For length reasons, I'll leave out a lot of the back and forth, but here's the gist of it. My sister had it in her head that we were buying the house to either A, rent to own it out to her family, or B, transfer the title to her name and have her pay us back in time. Yes, that is literally what she was thinking. Despite us never discussing anything like that once. When I told her that was not happening, my sister threw a fit. She was pissed because this was her dream too, and that it wasn't fair that only one of us could live it. That since she had children, they deserved to grow up in the family home, and what did my wife and I even need all that space for? My wife told her that it isn't the family home anymore. It wasn't left in a will. We purchased it, and now it is our home, and we decide what we will do with it. My sister told my wife to shut up and that she had no say in this family discussion. I informed my sister that if she spoke to my wife that way again, we would not be having any kind of contact with her anymore. That she doesn't get to assume we're giving her a house and then throw a hissy fit when she's put in her place. And we left. My in-laws spoke to us on the matter a few times, but all told us we were in the right and that my sister was very out of line. I assumed everyone would agree, but if they did, I wouldn't be on this thread. I got texts and voicemails from my parents saying that we were out of line, threatening my sister. They told me they were disappointed in me for taking my sister's dream from her, and that I don't have kids, so I can't understand her want to provide them with a good home and childhood like she had. That it's only fair we set up a way to give her the house, and that we could afford to find something else. Even my more distant relatives have said that it was cruel of us to take that from her. I'm honestly super shocked and taken aback. I've seen stories similar to this on Reddit, entitled people thinking they should get their relatives' houses, but I never expected to live it. This feels surreal, and I hate that we're starting this new chapter out on such a sour note. Ada for buying my sister's dream house. Edit. Wow, this blew up in such a short amount of time. Thank you for your support, and if this continues to be interesting and not blow over, I'll definitely update. Yes, this unfortunately is a real situation, and in case anyone is curious, yes, the house is big and expensive, but it's severely outdated, which is why the size and features don't exactly match the price in today's housing market. Like, I don't think any owners after my grandparents renovated a single thing. Also, I am a woman, lol. Update. I can't read and respond to all of these comments, but thank you. I will continue to update, but since posting yesterday morning, not much had happened. I will add a bit more of what's happened since the BBQ. I haven't responded to any messages my family have left. I honestly didn't think this was that big a deal, but after scrolling through the comments for a while with my wife, we're both taking this much more seriously. A security system isn't an option at this moment. The house needs too much work at this moment to have cameras and such set up. They'd be in the way if everything else being done. We'd have to have them removed for several of the things we need done, and we don't even have internet access at the property at this moment. I will be scheduling meetings with some companies to start coming out and working on the property before we get to the cosmetics. However, we do have someone coming out to change the locks on Thursday. We won't be moving into the house for a bit since it needs so much work before we're comfortable. I've had a few people suggest the story is fake because the price of the house doesn't match the features. The house needs a lot of work. It hasn't been updated or worked on in years, and the price reflects that. Also, we are lucky to live in a state where property values haven't skyrocketed too bad. Update 2. For the goddamn life of me, I can't get my post to link, but I'm sure if you're reading this, it's because you've already read my original post. If someone would link it in the comments, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you to everyone for being so supportive and offering advice. To those who suggested getting a security system in place, we are going to do that, but the house is not in a place where a security system can be installed. For the time being, we're looking into getting some battery power trail cameras as suggested by one Redditor. I can't find your comment in the sea anymore, but you know who you are. We don't have to worry about internet access, and they won't be in the way of renovations. We are restoring the house back to its original glory, pre-carpeted bathrooms and mismatched wallpaper. Besides fixing broken crap and upgrading old appliances, we'll be having the floors redone, paint, wallpaper, new windows, and opening up some walls that shouldn't be there. For the next 2 weeks, my wife and I will be meeting with people coming out to work on electricity, plumbing, and a few other things, and we do have a consultation with a home security company. Along with cameras, we're looking to get alarms and door codes and set up an access gate around the property. One of those that needs either a passcode or to be let in by someone in the house. We've already made an appointment to have the locks changed and aren't concerned about my family trying to squat there. My in-laws have allowed us to park their camper trailer on the property while work is being done, not only for peace of mind, but to avoid commuting back and forth multiple times daily. For the actual update, I was hesitant to post this update since it's so soon after my original post, but I guess enough has happened for it to be useful information. The events of the BBQ took place last week, but I only got around to writing it all out yesterday. I sent a message to my parents and siblings yesterday evening asking to meet up to talk things through and try and figure out what's wrong and what exactly the hell is happening. Earlier today, my wife and I met my parents and my brother's family at his house before my sister arrived. I let them know that if they tried to interrupt or control the conversation, we would leave. I told them that I never once even suggested my sister would be allowed to rent out the house or buy it from us. That you didn't know where she got the idea from, and showed them the text strings where I first sent her the listing and every conversation where I updated her on the progress. My mom asked to see the rest of the conversations about the house, and I told her there were none. She informed me that my sister told them all that we had made an agreement that my wife and I would purchase it and then rent it out to my wife's family until they'd paid enough to buy it. That we would live in the guest house and they'd get the main house. She told them that we had went back on our deal and had absolutely shattered her dreams of raising her kids in the house she grew up in. We gave our side, and it wasn't difficult at all to convince my parents that we were telling the truth. With the lack of evidence on my sister's part and absolutely no legal documentation, my parents didn't even attempt to try and back up what she told them. My parents were very apologetic and let us know that they never would have said those things to us had they known the truth, and that they supported us 100%. My brother was supportive of us as well, but he was never one of the people harassing us over this, so his reaction is less important. Around then, my sister and her husband showed up. My Bill is a doormat and will give my sister whatever she wants, so I wasn't expecting much from him. I asked her to produce any of the necessary evidence to prove that I told her we'd rent the house out to her. That her lie was ill-conceived and that she better have a good explanation. She attempted to suggest that I had deleted the conversation, but when she couldn't produce said messages, either her story fell apart. She started crying, saying it wasn't fair that we got everything handed to us, and that we didn't need a house this big, and that we were rubbing our wealth in her face. So to my understanding, she thought she could trick everyone into bullying us into renting our house out to her? I guess, like some kind of effed in the head Scooby-Doo villain. Instead of using ghosts to scare us away, she's using a fake rental agreement that she didn't even attempt to make look or sound legit. We let her know that she had a lot of apologizing to do before we'd consider having a relationship with her moving forward, and that she wouldn't be welcome in our home for a long time. At the moment, our relationship with my parents is rocky at best, for obvious reasons. They let us know that they're here to support us if we need moving assistance or help with renovations, but it'll take some good hard thinking to decide if we're okay with that. We will not be giving anyone in my family a spare key, but my wife's parents will receive one for emergencies. The house won't be in a state to host guests for a bit, so we are choosing to cross the "can my family be trusted at our home" bridge when we come to it. To answer some common questions I've noticed in the comments. My sister obviously has some screws loose, but my parents don't really coddle her. She's what you can consider the golden child and the baby, but honestly most of her antics up until this point were just one-upping achievements during our childhood or seeking more attention from our parents. She's dramatic, entitled, and a little selfish, but has never displayed this level of crazy before. Yes, we will get a security system, but not for a bit. No, my family will not be trusted with a key. Yes, I am a woman. I know it's crazy, how can two women be married, lol. My wife and I do not have kids and will not have them in the future. My sister has done some odd things, but nothing as absolutely absurd as this. We will be meeting with an estate planner to put everything into writing. We plan on leaving the property to my Sil and her kids with my Mill as the executor of our estate for the time being. My sister and her family rent a small house in town. They aren't struggling per se. They each are college educated with good jobs, but children are expensive, and then adding in student debt and $2,000 a month in rent, and you aren't exactly living it up. Also, there's a surprising amount of people mad at my wife and I for being rich. We are not wealthy. My in-laws are comfortable and are generous enough to allow us to occupy their rental at no charge. They bought a new house decades ago and just didn't sell their previous one, so they allowed my wife to live there. The down payment was my wife's college fund from years ago. Her parents put money in it, but when she decided to go into a trade, they kept the money and saved it specifically for the purpose of a down payment. When we told them that the house was up for sale finally, they offered the college fund they had kept for her. We worked good-paying jobs, but were able to save so much because we didn't have to pay $2,000 a month for housing. We did skimp and save, and we did damn well earn it. We lived below our means and spent years foregoing any kind of luxuries to afford something we wanted. So yeah, not as drama-filled as a lot of people were expecting or hoping. I don't see this as the end of it, not at all. But for the time being, my wife and I are focusing on dealing with our new house and not my sister. She's blocked on both our phones as of this morning, and I'm not sure when I plan on unblocking her. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, make sure like, comment, share, and subscribe the channel James Stories.